Greetings, my sister queens. Greetings, my brothers. Greetings to everyone here to bear witness to the power of voice and agency of a Black woman. In this moment, I breathe for the vessels of vessels, and I invite you to breathe with me. And by this, I simply mean that I breathe for the big mamas, the mamas, and the mimas. I breathe for the Gigi's, the Glammies, and the Gam-Gams. I breathe for the abuelas, the nanas, and the omas. But in particular, I breathe for my grandma, Frances Johnson, who is no longer on this earthly plane. And I breathe for my granny, Alma Allen, who just celebrated her 96th birthday on March 21st. No matter what you call your vessels of vessels, grandmas tend to have a special place in our hearts. Ordinarily, they are loving, supportive, nurturing, and if you ask, a tad bit spoiling. And the nice thing about grandmas is that the older they are, the more wisdom they tend to possess. My granny is no exception to that rule. And after 96 years on this earth, Granny has definitely seen more than a few things. And more than a few things have definitely brought her joy. But if you were to ask anyone in her circle what brings her true joy, outside of family, of course, they'd all respond, gardening. So Granny, if you're watching or if you're listening, from right there in Pensacola, Florida, this moment is for you. And with all pun intended, I give you your flowers now while you can enjoy them. Welcome to Granny's Garden. At Granny's Garden, you don't need a green thumb. And as a matter of fact, I strongly encourage you to remove that word from your vocabulary and replace it with green heart. For a green heart is a lot more spiritual. According to the heart chakra mantra, my heart is open to receive the energy of love. I radiate this essence. I walk my path with ease and grace. Growing with love makes all the difference at Granny's Garden. And we love what we grow. And when you visit our garden, you'll see the regulars: fruits, vegetables, succulents, and for Granny, we gotta grow flowers. But we grow something extra special here. We grow Black joy. Now, everybody here is familiar with growing the regulars, but you may be less familiar with growing Black joy. So let me explain it to you poetically. What is Black joy? Black joy is a statement. Black joy is a stride. Black joy is permission. Black joy is pride. Black joy is a form of resistance, and Black joy is a form of rest. Black joy is anything and everything you need it to be, because truly, Black joy is the best. And the unique feature about growing Black joy is that you don't even need to be Black to appreciate it. Sounds strange, right? Well, let's think about it. You don't need to be a vegetarian to appreciate or grow vegetables. Now, do you? So now that you have a basic understanding of what Black joy is, it is equally imperative for you to understand why we grow it. And that answer is simple: to provide a counter narrative. At Granny's Garden, we are tired of the typical deficit narrative that tends to surround Black people. For we are so much more than your nightly news headline. We are so much more than the sadness that you see on social media. And let me tell you, we are definitely so much more than the trauma that they put in the textbooks. For we are queens and kings with royal stories of true joy. And if the rest of the world's not going to tell our story, we will right here at Granny's garden. Now, sadly, when you grow the regulars, weeds pop up. Weeds are invasive, and they strangle and kill the very beauty of the landscape. And when you grow black joy, weeds pop up too. But those weeds take the form of police brutality, mass incarceration, health disparities, and other forms of systemic racism. And unfortunately, we cannot prevent weeds from popping up. But we have the power to expand the community of black joy farmers and create a Granny's Garden in every community across the world, because it is through your individual effort that it adds to the collective narrative. And that's why we grow black joy. So that got me excited, y'all. You know what it is. You know why we grow it. Y'all came here to learn how to grow black joy. So before I tell you the 4 basic steps of how to grow black joy, I must give you some granny wisdom. This wisdom occurred on Thanksgiving Day, November 25th, 2021. I was sitting at the couch, right there next to Granny, and I decided to do a little investigation because I knew that I got my love of gardening from my dad, but my dad got it from somewhere, right? The somewhere was sitting right next to me. So I turned to Granny and I asked, Granny, what is it about gardening that you love so much? Now, all of y'all here, you know that Granny is 96 years old. But what you don't know is that she has dementia. But in that moment, with pure clarity and sincerity, she looked at me and responded by saying, there is something about growing something that makes you feel alive. The frequency of those words when she shared them with me then and I share them with you now are so powerful. So as you get into the garden and you learn these 4 steps, never forget that really there is something about growing black joy that makes you feel alive. Let's get growing. So, 4 basic steps, and they all start with the letter S. We like to keep it simple here when it comes to growing black joy. The step number 1 is soil. Do me a favor. The next time you go outside, I want you to look at all the trees. Now, I admit, I have a thing for trees. I'm biased. I think they're beautiful. But just go outside and look at the trees. Look at their height. Look at the branches. Look at the bark. Look at the way they dance in the breeze. Take your eyes all the way to the top and look at the crown, and then bring your eyes all the way down to the bottom and see what the rest of the world ignores. For that beauty that you just acknowledged above would not be possible if it was not rooted in a nutrient-rich, dark, brown, black soil. And as a black joy farmer, we honor that space and we know the power of the soil. So that's why it's our first step. Step number 2, seed. I have a thing for trees. I already warned you, so just bear with me. An acorn is all of about 2 inches, but give it time and the proper growing conditions, this little acorn will grow to be an oak tree that's up to 80 feet tall and anywhere between 80 and 100 feet wide. That's magic. Well, actually, it's not magic. It might be magic to the outside world, but that seed already knew its potential when it was resting in your palm. Just because the world didn't see it didn't mean that the acorn didn't know it. We, black joy farmers, are that seed. We have a potential that resides so deep within that we know is there. And give us time and the proper growing conditions, we too will grow tall and wide, and the world will stop and take notice and see the beauty of growing black joy. Step number 3, self-expression. I am the 3rd generation of black joy farmers. There we are. My granny, she grew flowers. She loved the aroma, she loved the color, she loved the idea of propagation. Generation number 2, my dad. He didn't grow flowers, He grows vegetables. And I think it's poetic because at my dad's core, he's a giver. So literally, he grows to give. And when I asked him about his growing practice, he said, I love to share my crop. And that's what he does with his church family, with his neighbors, with his friends, with us. Enter me, third generation. I don't grow flowers. I don't grow vegetables. I grow rescues. I cannot pass a trash pile and see a discarded plant and not pick it up because somebody else no longer saw the value or the beauty in it. That's when I want to pick it up, bring it home, and bring it into the green kid family. I see potential in it all. Now, we're working on a fourth generation right now. My baby girl's 26. She's in Vegas doing her thing, and she likes to grow succulents. We're not at the love stage yet, so just bear with us. She'll get there. But to you, my expanded community of Black Joy farmers, realize that you grow what makes you happy and what brings you joy, what puts a smile on your face, because it's your individual effort that adds to the collective narrative. Step number 4. Now I want to get a little bit closer to y'all on this one. I need you to listen to me with your ears and especially with your heart. You know that green heart we talked about? The heart that's open to receive the energy of love? Because I want to pour some love into you right now. I need you to slow down. I need you to slow down and be present. The rest of the world will keep spinning. The demands of the day will keep piling up. But when will you press pause? When will you say no to the demands of the world until you say yes to the demands of self? Please slow down and be present. And Granny told me that she would spend hours in her garden and visit 2 or 3 times a day and notice that if it was leaning too much on one side, that maybe it was getting too much water. That if the leaves were wrinkly and brown, that it was getting too much sun. But she would also see the slightest change of green and know that that was the right growing spot. But that would not have been possible without her slowing down to be present, to understand the language of the landscape. We need to know the language of our inner landscape. Y'all just took me to church there. Let me come back. So now you know. You know the 4 basic steps of growing Black Joy. You know why we grow it. You know what it is. You know how to grow it. That leaves me with one question. When? Now is the time to Blacktivate joy, to activate a new conversation about what's right with Black people rather than perpetuating that typical deficit narrative. So if you are ready to acknowledge the soil, plant a seed, come on now, engage in self-expression, and most importantly, slow down, I extend my hand to you. I extend my arms around you with this warm embrace of thank you. Most importantly, I say, welcome to Granny's Garden, where we know that there is something about growing something that what? Makes you feel alive. Happy growing. Ashe.